Hello and welcome! Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the magic that makes a web page feel, well, alive. We're talking about how a flat, boring page can turn into something that actually interacts with you. We're going to dive into the language that makes the whole modern web tick.
So think about it. You've definitely seen this before, right? You log into a site and it says, "Hey, welcome back." Or you click a button and a whole new menu just appears out of nowhere. A simple page of text just can't do that. So what's the secret? How does that even work?
Well, here's the surprising part. A lot of that magic isn't happening on some far-off server. Nope, it's actually a special scripting language that's running directly inside your web browser. We're talking Chrome, Firefox, Safari, they all speak this language. It's what lets them add this whole layer of intelligence to pretty much any page you visit.
And that language is JavaScript. Really, its whole job is to take a standard, plain web page and give it superpowers. It enhances both how it works and how it looks. It is the engine behind pretty much every single interactive thing you click on online.
Okay, enough talk. You know, the best way to really get this stuff is to just see it in action. So, right now, we're going to walk through your very first line of JavaScript. This is it. This is the moment you stop just using the web and you start creating for the web.
And just look at how straightforward this is. On the left, you've got a basic web page, right? But tucked inside is one little line of JavaScript. And on the right, that's the result. That one command told the browser to write "Welcome to JavaScript programming" directly onto the page. That's it. Pretty cool, huh?
So how does that command actually work? Let's use an analogy. Think of document.writeln as a button on a remote control for your web page. The document part is basically you aiming the remote at the page itself. And writeln? Well, that's the button you press that says, "Write a new line of text right here."
Okay, let's quickly break down the other pieces here. Those script tags, they're kind of like bookends. They tell the browser, hey, listen up. The JavaScript starts here and it ends over here. The parentheses, they hold our actual instructions. And the quotation marks just tell JavaScript that what's inside is a simple string of text.
Now, just like any language you might learn, JavaScript has its own grammar rules. And honestly, getting these basic rules down is the key to writing code that, actually works. So let's look at the two most important rules every beginner absolutely needs to know.
Here they are, the two big ones. First, JavaScript is case sensitive. That means a lowercase document is a valid command, but an uppercase document is nothing. The computer sees them as two completely different things. Second, every single complete command, we call them statements, should end with a semicolon. Just think of it like the period at the end of a sentence.
And that semicolon, it's more than just a rule, it's a really good habit. It just makes everything crystal clear for the browser. You're explicitly telling it, okay, this command is totally finished, you can move on to the next one now. This tiny little habit makes your code so much cleaner and way more predictable, especially as your scripts get bigger.
And here's a little warning, because this is the one mistake that trips up almost everyone when they're starting out. If you mix up your uppercase and lowercase letters, you're going to get what's called a syntax error. The browser just won't have a clue what you're asking it to do, and your code will just break. It's a tiny detail, but it makes all the difference.
All right, so we've managed to make a web page talk. That's awesome. But what if we wanted to listen? This is where things get really, really cool. We're now going to make our page truly interactive by starting a real two-way conversation with the person using it.
And the tool for that is something called a dialogue. Now, you've seen these a million times. They're those little windows that pop up on your screen to give you an important message, or in our case, to ask you to type something in.
And here it is. This is that aha moment. This code uses a window.prompt dialog to ask for a name. The user types in Jim, and then, this is the magic part, the script grabs that input and uses it to display a custom greeting. The page isn't static anymore, it's dynamic. It literally responded to us.
But wait a second, how did the script remember the name Jim after that little pop-up box went away? This is the final piece of the puzzle for today, and it is the absolute key to building much more powerful programs. The secret is something called a variable.
So what's a variable? It's just a named spot in the computer's memory. Honestly, the easiest way to think about it is like a labeled box. You can put a piece of information inside that box, and then anytime you need that information again, you just call it by the name on the label.
Let's walk through the exact steps from that last example. First, that line var name, that's us creating an empty box and slapping a label on it that says name. Second, the prompt pops up and gets the input from the user.
Third, and this is the most important step, the code assigns that input to our variable. It puts Jim inside the box. And finally, the code just looks inside the name box, grabs the value, and uses it to display our custom message.
And here is one last pro tip that's going to save you so many headaches down the road. Always, always choose meaningful names for your variables. A name like username is 1,000 times clearer than something like X or data1. This makes your code way easier to read, which means anyone, including you 6 months from now, can look at it and instantly know what it's supposed to be doing. So just take a second and think about how far we've come in only a few minutes. We went from a totally blank page to writing code that can display text, that has to follow specific rules, and can even remember a user's name. You've officially taken your first real step from being just a web user to being a web creator.
And that really brings us to our final thought. You now have the fundamental building blocks to make a web page that can listen and respond. You can ask for a name, a number, a favorite color, anything you want. The page is your canvas now. So the only question left is, what are you going to ask it to do next?